The U.S. and China say they have reached a groundbreaking agreement,
putting carbon polluters on notice.
A step forward in tackling climate change.
The global warming towards tackling greenhouse gases.
An historic agreement.
A breakthrough. Ambitious goals.
New strict limits.
The ambitious new targets.
Major milestone.
Cranking down their emissions.
The race to reduce is on.
And they said, okay, Canada's gone. Now we can get down to brass tacks on this climate change.
These are fairly aggressive targets.
Well, this is an absolutely game-changing deal.
Jolly green giant of China there.
Leaving Canada as a follower.
Over to you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Up until now, many nations, including Canada, had used China as an excuse.
It's hard for a country like Canada to complain China isn't at the table.
Prime Minister Stephen Harper feeling the heat.
Surely this puts some pressure on us.
We don't want to be offside with other countries.
This is getting embarrassing.
They just don't seem to understand or give a damn.
My.
The media party is euphoric over the so-called deal between the United States and China about carbon dioxide emissions, but it wasn't actually a deal at all. Under this so-called agreement, the U.S. says it will cut 26 to 28% of its carbon dioxide emissions by the year 2025, but China says it will continue to grow its emissions without limits, as much as it wants, until at least the year 2030. But even then, there's no way of enforcing either end of this deal. For more on the media's constant obsession with global warming, we're joined by Sun News contributor Lorrie Goldstein. Lorrie, there's so many things in there that's weird. Let me start with one of them, which is you would think that not a single one of those journalists, and we showed half a dozen and 10 there, know that China actually didn't agree to any cuts. They agreed to expand without limit to 2030. I don't know if they know that, or if they know that but they're ignoring it because it contradicts their narrative. I think they know less than nothing, and they're propagating news that's actually false.
Everything that we saw there is just untrue. I don't know what the motives are, but it's all untrue. As you said, there's no deal. There's no targets. There's no timeline. China, subsequent to the deal, said we don't want to be questioned about the deal by either other governments or environmental groups. And on the other half of the equation, the United States. U.S. Oil production is the largest in the world now. It's outstripping Saudi Arabia. Natural gas production outstripping Russia. Coal, U.S. coal exports, which is the dirtiest fossil fuel, are at record levels, being shipped to, among other places, China.
Yeah.
I don't know what reality those people are talking about.
Can I tell you an anecdote? A couple months ago, I did an interview on a radio show called Ecocentric. I love engaging the Greens, but this is a show all about the environment. Like, he was an expert. And I asked him a question. I said, do you know if the United States has increased or decreased its carbon dioxide emissions over the last few years? He didn't know. He didn't know what levels they were. These are extremely basic questions. He says we've got to get those U.S. emissions down. Well, they've fallen by 800 megatons because of fracking.
Yeah.
He didn't know. Now, if he is an environmental advocate and journalist, I bet you not 1 in 100 journalists actually know the facts. But this is what I'm puzzling over. They're obsessed with this issue. They don't know the basics of it. I don't think they care. I think it's a big flock of geese flying in formation. They don't know why. It's like a school of fish swimming together. They don't know why. They just do it.
Yeah, I've been covering this now for about 5 or 6 years, this particular issue. And I've spoken to a lot of politicians. And there's two who understand the file. One is Stephen Harper, and the other is Elizabeth May, to give her credit. Mm-hmm. She understands the file. I mean, when we've talked about it, we totally disagree with each other. Mm-hmm. And we've only talked, a few times. But I also read what people say in that. And at least what she says shows that she understands the basics of the issue. Yeah. Harper gets it too. Yeah. All the others, I remember when Stéphane Dion was the leader, we had him in for an editorial board, and I went at it with him for an hour. And I was very gentle in my column after, because I thought, well, look, he's going to lose anyway. But with all due respect, he didn't understand the file. Yeah. That was Stéphane Dion.
Well, and they actually don't care whether it's subconscious or not, because I've never met a politician, a journalist, or a green activist who lives the creed.
No.
If you believe that fossil fuel use is killing the world, you are not an MP from Salt Spring Island. jetting back and forth to Ottawa all the time.
You wouldn't live like Al Gore does.
Yeah, or like David Suzuki. I think part of it is just groupthink, being fashionable. Part of it is sort of a fake, easy moral righteousness. Let me show you a clip from Barack Obama. This was the apex of the global warming self-regard. I think, like so many things that liberals do, they do it to feel morally superior. Look at him campaigning just days before he became president. Take a look at this.
This was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal.
Well, if
sorry,
the planet began to heal, and like King Canute commanding the sea to recede.
King Canute was actually trying to make the point that he couldn't do it.
That's right.
Obama, I remember, I just laughed because I remember that at the time, and I was really like, what the F is, and why isn't anybody calling him on this?
Well, because they want to be part of it. It was quasi-religious. Religiosity has fallen in the West precipitously. I think most people, even if they say they're Christian, they don't really believe. But here is a new belief filling the void in our hearts. I think if you look at a lot of deep environmentalists, they even have that phrase, deep green. It's a philosophy that borders on religion, or as Lord Monckton would say, more a superstition. This fills the void left by belief in Jesus or any other gods. That's the last word to you.
Well, people always want to feel special, so they want to. But the concern I have is that the great deception is that this is about lowering greenhouse gas emissions. It's not about lowering greenhouse gas emissions. Nothing that's been tried, cap and trade, carbon pricing, carbon taxes, none of them work. Demonstrably, real world, we have the studies, none of them work. Wind and solar aren't going to power industrialized countries. This isn't about that, Ezra. This is about a much more old ideological war of the left against capitalism, against development, against Western ideas, and it's about north-south, well, what we would say first world to third world wealth transfer. Yeah. That's what it's about. It's not about saving the planet. These people know the planet isn't in existential danger. This is about money, and it's about Canadians paying higher taxes to do climate reparations, send hundreds of billions of dollars to third world dictatorships where the money will never be used for lowering emissions. That's what's really happening.
Isn't that the truth? Lorrie Goldstein, great to have you on the show again. Thank you.